Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, y'all. Frederick and Bobby are reunited in a prison in East Tennessee. They're doing fine. After a few months, they were finally able to become cellies, and everything is great. Bobby's still working his job. He helped Frederick get a job in the warehouse. Everything is going fine for them, but like most situations, some people don't know when to let go. Some people don't know when to stop. This drug dealer that at the other prison, he wrote a friend of his at this prison that Frederick and Bobby are at, and telling them what was going on with Frederick and trying to, get him in some trouble. So this drug dealer that's on the compound with him, he thinks that he sees a way to get Frederick caught up so that he could possibly get shipped back to the prison he came from. Because a lot of times when you get shipped and you get in trouble, you go back to the institution that you just left from, or other things can be worked out or whatever the case may be. It just depends on the circumstances. So in this situation, I'm gonna let you know how this played out for Frederick and Bobby, and show you how far some people will go to continue to try to make your life miserable because their life is miserable. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, y'all. So look here, y'all. The dealer at the other prison out in West Tennessee, right? He wrote a friend of his in East Tennessee and told him that Frederick was an addict and he was trying to get his life together. But, he had also been able to manipulate him into doing some things that, dehumanized him and took his dignity away from him. But Frederick stood up to him. He didn't like that. So he figured that, hey, I'm going to get him. You know what I'm saying? I get him transferred back down here because I can get him in trouble. And like I said in the intro, a lot of times when you go to a better institution and you get in trouble at that particular institution, especially within that first year, they'll send you back to the institution that you came from. Just that fast, you know what I mean? So what happened was this. This drug dealer that's on the compound with Frederick and Bobby, he had this officer that was with him, crooked officer that used to help him do some things and keep people in line on the compound. This officer, he was fully engaged in the criminal lifestyle, but he had a badge on. So what happened was this. He, because officers do shakedowns in the prison, right? And what I mean by shakedown, I'm not talking about like, shaking down somebody and blackmail them. I'm talking about they come to your room where you're at and they look around in the room to make sure you don't have any contraband or anything that you're not supposed to have. Mainly drugs, phone, tobacco, stuff like that, right? They have a list of the items and things that we can have in prison. And if it's not on that list, it's assumed that it's contraband. It just depends on the circumstances, right? But most surely, no drugs. So this particular officer, he comes to the cell. He comes to Frederick and Bobby's cell, right? Bobby's at work. Frederick had just gotten in from work, and they work different shifts. So he was shaking the cell down, and Frederick is outside the cell, and he's watching because when they shake our cells down, we're allowed to watch to make sure that, that they don't plant something in situations like that. And normally, when an officer shakes down, they have to have another officer with them. But in this situation, he didn't. He was by himself. It happens. It's usually no big deal because for the most part, they're really just not up to no shenanigans. But when you have a crooked officer, you never know what's going on, or an officer that's mad at you or whatever the case may be. And in this situation, you have an officer that wasn't playing fair. So when he was in the room shaking down, he said, "Which side is yours?" He asked Frederick. Frederick told him the left side of the room was his stuff, where his stuff was, and the left side of the shelf and all of that. So he's shaking that down. And he sticks his hand up on the shelf and goes up under the T-shirts. Frederick's not worried about it because he knows he's not doing anything. But he sticks his hand under the T-shirt, comes back out. He got a little piece of weed. Got a couple of bags of weed in his hand. He's looking, he said, "Oh, what is this?" Frederick panics. He's like, "I don't know what that is." He really wasn't paying attention to the officer to see that the officer had his hand cuffed when he stuck it up under there in the first place. So now he's super panicked because he's not sure what's going on. He knows his brother doesn't get high. He knows that shouldn't be in the room, but it's found on his shelf. Now he's afraid that everybody's going to think what? Think that he's relapsed. Think that he's getting high. He hasn't been here that long. He's been down here with his brother. His brother went through all of this, and his mother and father to get him down, and now he's getting down here, and now they find him, he's getting busted for some weed. So the officer tells him to step in the room. And when he steps in the room, Frederick, he's panicking, and the officer says, calm down, we can work this out. You're not in trouble yet. And he said, what you mean? He said, I can make this go away. You take care of a few things for me. Now, Frederick knows, he's been locked up long enough now to know what that means. Usually that means cooperate, tell me something, or whatever the case may be. Tell me who's doing something, or whatever the case may be. Something like that. And then they'll do whatever they do. Forget about it, let it go, move on, right? But in this situation, that's not what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about that at all. He told Frederick, he said, look, I got somebody I'm going to introduce you to. I need you to take care of some things for him, and then we'll make this go away. So Frederick, out of his panic, he entertained it. He said, take care of what? Do what? He said, well, I might need you to move a pack from here to there, whatever the case may be. Frederick said, I don't do that. I'm nobody's mule. He said, you're going to either do that or I'm going to write you up for this and we're going to ship you back to West Tennessee. So he freaks out. So the officer says, hold on a second. You think about this, you let me know tomorrow. So Frederick, he calms down a little bit. He sits down in the room, and Bobby comes in. And he tells Bobby what just happened. And Bobby freaks out. He didn't accuse his brother of doing anything. But what he did do is he's like, man, we have to do something. Stuff like this is going to always happen because Bobby peeps the game immediately. He sees that somebody's trying to set him up because he knows his brother hadn't been doing anything. Because why? Because truth be told, he shakes the cell down every day before he leaves to make sure nothing is in there because he understands that he's in prison. He was taught well by an old head that used to be his cellar. Always make sure you put things in your room in a certain way so if they are moved, when you come in, you know somebody's been in your room. It doesn't matter if it's an officer or another inmate, you know. Because sometimes inmates can get an officer to pop the door and go in your cell and steal your stuff and move your stuff around, plant stuff, whatever the case may be. So you know what your cell looks like when you leave. So he's done this for the last few weeks. Frederick didn't even know he was doing it. But he understands that his brother is a former addict. He wants to make sure that everything is fine. So he knew nothing was in that cell when he left that morning. But he's not sure what's going on. And he's heard the rumors that this officer is dirty. That this officer works with this particular drug dealer. So he understood exactly what was going on when his brother told him that what had happened. But now he tries to figure out what is he going to do about it. How does he fix this for his brother? Because if he comes with a write-up, if that officer comes back with a write-up, he can't prove nothing. He can't prove nothing. And his brother's going to get shipped. And his parents are going to be so disappointed. And he's afraid that it might make his brother relapse. So he does what any brother would do. He sits down and tells his brother that it's going to be okay. And then he tries to figure a way out. So after a couple of hours of thinking, Bobby tells Frederick, this is what you're going to do. Go tell the officer that you're going to do whatever it is he wants you to do. But you're not going to move anything through the VG. If you need him to move something, if they need you to move something on the compound, tell them you'll do it. Tell them you'll do it. But only after hours, after 4. Because the security is a little bit more lax at that time. And this is going to buy him some time to figure out what he's going to do. Because Bobby has decided that none of this is going to stop until he makes an example out of somebody. He's going to take down that officer, and he's going to take down this drug dealer. But he has to figure out how he's going to do it. He needs time to figure it out. So over the next few weeks, Bobby's watching everything. He's watching all the moves. He's making sure he knows who's who and what's what. And he had made some friends. He had made some friends that worked there, particularly this female. She was a CCO, which is like a secretary. So he went to her, and he confided in her, and he said, I need your help, but I don't need you to tell the police anything. So he ran everything down to her, what his brother's been through and everything. And she said, well, what can I do for you? And he said, I need to know a couple of things about this particular inmate. So she looked into some things for him, and she told him. He's a drug dealer. He's not a gang member. He's from this particular area of the state. He gets visits, this is that, just basic information. Stuff that's very important. And then this particular officer, he couldn't go to her for that. He had to rely on his own instincts for that, to figure out what was going on. But what he did find out, that this dude was married, right? So he called his girlfriend and told her to come to visit. When she came to visit, he had her search this dude. So they did a search on the computer to figure out who he was, where he was, got on his Facebook, found out he was married. They did everything they could and got all the information that they could on him, right? So this is what Bobby decided he was going to do. This is what Bobby decided he was going to do. He figured to get them, he's going to have to get them busted. But he's going to have to do it in a way where nobody knows it's him. So he tells his girlfriend in the VG his whole plan. She's totally against it, does not want to do it. She thinks he should go to the warden and tell the warden, and everything is going to be fine if he does that. And he letting her know. It's just not how it works in here. If I go to the warden, they move us to another prison, this problem follow us to another prison and another prison. He said it's not going to go away until we nip it right here. We got to nip it right here. And she says, what do you want me to do? He said, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to get my brother to tell them that he will put in work and that they're going to have to meet him, you know what I'm saying, halfway. And by meeting him halfway, you know, bring the pack to him so he could work it and get some money. And by doing that, he can get them to bring a pack in, however they bring it. But the pack wasn't going to make it all the way in. What he was going to do is get that officer, because he knew that from what he had been told, that the officer was the one bringing those packs to the prison. So this is what the plot was. The officer didn't know that he was going to target him. So he's telling the inmate, the other drug dealer, is cool with the guy back down west, this is what I'm going to do. If you get the pack brought in, my brother will work it, everything will be fine, and we can move like it, and everybody make money. Appealing to a drug dealer about money, you got him. You got him every time. He said, cool, that's what's up. So he tells the officer, bring the pack in. And he comes back and tells Bobby, it'll be here Wednesday. Why did he do that? He's feeling arrogant. That's why he did it. That's why he did it. He said, I got him. You feel me? So check this out. Look here. This is on a Monday. So this is what Bobby does. He had already discussed with his gal what she needed to do, what her role was. She's got the name of his wife. You feel me? She's got their phone number and all of that. So what she did, when he called her, he said, go ahead and do what I asked you to do. She said, okay. She pretended to be the officer's wife. Called the warden, told the warden that she suspected her husband was bringing drugs to the prison and cheating on her. Why is that important? Why is that important? The cheating part would explain and make the warden understand why she was called. She's mad. She's jilted. So she's calling and telling that her husband is bringing drugs. And she told him exactly when the drugs were going to come. The only problem is if it don't happen like it's supposed to, they don't get another shot at this. And if it don't go down Wednesday and they figure out that somebody has told it, then Bobby and Frederick might have a problem. So Tuesday goes by, everything's fine. Wednesday comes, guess what? Police everywhere in the parking lot. When he pulls up on that long road, he can't turn around. They let him get on the road, they lock him in. He drives on, he don't know this though. He drives on down the road, he gets to the parking lot. He sees the police. It's a shakedown. Now everybody gets shook down. So it's not like it's targeting him. But he know he got dope in the car. Dogs get up on his car and they start bowling. They going off. They trying to get him. They let him know drugs in this car. They tell him to step outside the car. They get him. Drugs. Then, guess what happened? They said, tell us who you're taking them to, and everything is going to be just fine. And he told it on the drug dealer. They come straight to the compound, and they go lock him up. Now, both of them are gone. Both of them are gone. But here's the problem. While the officer's not on the compound anymore, right, and he's got issues going on at home because he thinks he don't know what's happening. He don't know if his wife told it or not. But anyway, that's what they told him. He ain't thinking about this penitentiary stuff no more. But the dude that was on the compound, he's in the hole, waiting to see what's going on. And he's trying to piece together who knew this was coming in. It ain't but two other people, Frederick and Bobby. So he starts writing notes out to the compound, letting everybody know that somebody snitched on him and it had to be one of them. Right? So what is it that Frederick and Bobby do? Frederick and Bobby be like, man, we don't know nothing about none of that. Now, a couple of his friends came to him, real aggressive and all this and that, right? But Bobby had already made an agreement with the Crips. You know what I'm saying? To make sure if anything go on, that they got their back. And they was going to pay him. He said he's going to give them $100. If anything ever go wrong with them, to make sure that they got some backing, they were going to be there. So Cousin them stepped in and said, hold up. Man, they with us. We don't know what y'all got going on. Now, keep in mind, the Crips don't know that he done told it. They just know that this dude been rocking it solid for the whole time he's been there. And he told them, he guaranteed them, if anything ever go wrong, as long as they had his back, he was going to give them $100 just to make sure that everything was straight and fair. So when it did go down, they stepped in. Now keep in mind, these drug dealers, these other drug, they ain't gang members. So they stand down. Problem solved. So that night in the room, Frederick and Bobby are talking. And for the first time since the accident, Frederick tells Bobby how he really feels about what's going on and how he feels about his brother. He tells him he knows he hasn't been a big brother to him since that happened. You know what I'm saying? Even when they were waiting to go to trial, he was doing a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking. But what he learned about himself over these last few years is that, it will get better. And he's ashamed of a lot of the things that he had done, but he had come to understand that if it wasn't for Bobby, his mama and daddy, that he'd be way worse off. Way worse off. And that's the whole point of this story that I'm telling y'all. A lot of things happen to us in life that, because of our own decisions, that make us feel one way or the other. But when these things happen, we have to figure out a way to move forward in our lives. And part of that moving forward is you have to forgive yourself. And because if you never do that, you're never going to be able to move forward in a way that's positive and productive. Never. And he thanked his brother for that. He thanked his brother for never giving up on him. He thanked his brother for being his keeper. And he told Bobby that he was going to be more of a big brother to him, from this day forward. and that he was going to get it together. And that's all Bobby wanted to hear. That's all Bobby wanted to hear. For the next few years, everything ran smoothly. Everything ran smoothly. And then they ended up they had maybe 18 months left, and they got transferred to this facility. And like I said, this was a few years back when I was doing my magazine. And that's when I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to Frederick and get this whole story and to be able to share with y'all. Tell me what you think about this story. Have you ever faced any situations that caused you to go down that dark hole, and then you run into people that continue to want you to be in that dark place because they were miserable, people that wouldn't let you forget your past, want to always remind you of your past? Have you been there? Have you done that? How did you get out of it? Share that story with me. Go to my YouTube page, share that story with me, because I'm interested to know. And if you don't listen to my show on YouTube and you listen to it on one of the podcast platforms, go to my email. Share your story with me. Share that story with me. I'm curious to know how you've overcome your situations. I want to know if there are any similarities in how we all get over things. Because it gets hard sometimes, especially when you think you're the only one that's going through something. Because in this situation, Frederick, he just couldn't imagine that people really could understand what he was going through, and it caused him to go down that dark road. But his little brother knew. His little brother knew to move forward, you got to forgive yourself. And that's the message of this story, y'all. Learn to forgive yourself, because you are your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper. Dig that. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.